Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today Fantasy Flight released a spoiler article for yellow cards for Legacies. So we're just going to go ahead, take a look at the cards, let you know what I think of them. We have characters, some events, and so on. So we're just going to take a look at the cards. I'm going to give my thoughts on the cards. Also in the article, they gave a release window for Legacies. So the article claims Legacies should be coming out early first quarter 2018. So doesn't look like we're going to be getting a December release date like a lot of distributors had kind of hoped for, but it'll be early first quarter. We don't know exactly like what early means as it goes in Fantasy Flight. It could be January, maybe it could be February. People have been speculating between a February release date and maybe a release date sometime in January, but it'll be coming out early next year. But until then, we have these spoilers to take a look at. So we're just going to go ahead and bring up the first card here. First card we have is Biff Fortuna, Major Domo, 9 health, 9/12. So you have a 1-to-1 on his points to health as far as his single die goes. So 9 for a single, 12 for elite. He has 1 focus, a disrupt, a resource, 2 specials, and a blank. And special is roll a character die on one of your other characters into your pool. So you can kind of cheat out these activations. One thing I would like about a special is you can roll a character in that has a special on their card, or maybe they have an upgrade that has a special. And if you roll special on that, you can then go ahead and trigger that special because you're allowed to, when you're resolving symbols, resolve all those symbols that you possibly can. So it's like with data pad, for example. Data pad special says turn a die to a side not showing damage. You can turn it to a special and then immediately resolve that special. Kind of like how Holocron special works as well, where you swap out the Holocron with an ability upgrade, pay a resource, roll that die into your pool, and then you're able to resolve that die if you also hit special. So other characters with specials or characters that have upgrades that have specials could be really useful with Biff Fortuna. Maybe something in like a blue-yellow deck where you have a character with 4 speed. And let's say you roll out Biff Fortuna and then you get special. You trigger it. You roll that other character in. They hit 4 speed special. You then trigger that and take 2 additional actions. So I think decent side. So no damage. He doesn't really do damage. He's kind of like basically the way I'm reading the ability is Jabba, tells him to do something, and he's like, "Hey, Gamorrean guard, come here and go do this." So he's essentially kind of telling the other characters on your team to kind of like do stuff, like get out there and fight or whatever it might be. So again, like I said, no damage, but he can focus. He has disrupt, resource, and then the 2 specials, which is pretty nice. So that is Biff Fortuna. We're going to go ahead and take a look at our next card. And next up, we have Greedo, Unlucky Mercenary. 7 health, 7 or 11 points, depending on if you want to run a single die or run him at elite. He was partially spoiled in the one of the Fantasy Flight product catalogs, but now we have the full card, full ability, and all his sides to take a look at. So he has a 1 range damage side, 2 range damage side, 2 indirect damage, disrupt, and double blanks. Legendary card. And this interesting ability. So before this character is defeated, roll any number of his character dice into your pool, then resolve any number of his character dice in the order of your choice. So essentially, we figured it was something about rolling in once the character was like getting defeated. A lot of people on Reddit had kind of looked at that and figured out that was what it did. But it looks like it's only with character dice. So you roll his character dice in, and then you're immediately able to resolve them. Still, he does have 3 damage sides. He has a 1, a 2, and a 2 indirect. So if he gets defeated, he's able to potentially put out, let's say you had him at elite, potentially put out 4 damage at the most. So he could maybe you hit both 2 range sides, or you hit both indirect sides, or something like that. Being able to kind of resolve it and then roll somebody else in afterward be interesting. So like I said, with Darth Vader, if you're able to play, let's say Greedo's rolled out, you've resolved them already, you play the price of failure to defeat Greedo, and now you ready Vader and you roll Greedo back in, and you're able to do some damage with him. However, if you're running Vader at elite, Awakenings Vader at elite, you're only going to be able to run Greedo at a single die. So run him at it. You have a 21 and 7, so you have 28 points, and then maybe like 2 points for a plot when more of those come out. I do like that his points are 7, 11, so that kind of like some lucky numbers, and he's also the unlucky mercenary. So this ability could be pretty interesting. I do like that he has the 3 damage sides, and then he can roll in essentially before he gets defeated. So you essentially he's defeated, you roll him in, resolve damage, hopefully, and then he's actually defeated. But I like pairing him with, we'll probably like maybe pairing a single one of him with Vader, so you could get another activation out of Vader, roll Vader in, do a bunch of damage, defeat Greedo, roll his dice in, do damage, and then ready Vader, and he's ready to go for another activation later in the round. So that is Greedo. We're going to take a look at our next card. And next up, we have Archangel, Dr. Aphra's ship. 2 resources, 1 range damage, 2 indirect damage, shield, 2 shields for a resource, and blank, and an ability after you activate the support, activate up to 2 of your other supports in the order of your choice. So you roll in Archangel, and then let's say you're just playing an Aphra deck, or mostly Aphra, and you have her droid in there as well. You can then activate the droid, use its ability to hit Aphra for damage, and roll in another support. This could be really cool in vehicle decks because you'll be able to get this vehicle out and potentially 2 more vehicles with the ability. Or if you pair this with leadership, let's say you're running, like I said, Aphra, so you roll in Archangel, roll in Aphra, roll in 2 more vehicles or other supports, and then pay 1 resource to take additional action. At that point, you're going to have a good amount of dice in your pool. Hopefully, a lot of it is of the same symbol, so maybe like a lot of indirect damage or a lot of range damage or whatever it may be. And then if you pay the resource with partnership, you're able to resolve those dice. So I also like the cost. The cost is really nice as well. So it only costs 2 damage sides, gets more of your vehicles or other supports into play. It has a resource on it as well, so you can hit it with like bait and switch, or you can just use it to make resources. 2 shield sides, so it plays well with Aphra's ability when once you assign or once you deal indirect damage to her, you get to, I believe it's draw a card. So this will help keep her shielded. Aphra also has, I think, a 2 shield side on her die anyway. So this could be a really cool vehicle for like a deck with her or just a big support deck. So that is Archangel. We're going to take a look at our next card. And next up, we have Jar Binks, Clumsy Outcast, 7 health, 7 or 9 points if you want to run a single die or run him at elite. So again, a 1-to-1 on his health for his single die. He has 1 indirect damage, 1 disrupt, 1 discard, 1 shield, 1 resource, and a blank. And this really interesting ability. So this could be, I think it's just going to be a lot of fun playing Jar Jar. So any player may take an action to force you to activate this character. So if I'm playing against you, I can say roll in Jar Jar. As my action, I am forcing you to roll Jar Jar in. They roll him in. And then after you activate this character, reroll all dice showing a symbol not showing on his character die. So if Jar Jar rolls in and rolls a disrupt, all the other dice that are in the pool that are not showing disrupt get rerolled. If you roll indirect damage, everything not showing indirect damage gets rerolled, and so on down for like discard, resource, shields, and so on. So if you roll a blank on Jar Jar, it could reroll a lot of different stuff because it's a symbol not reroll everything not showing a blank essentially. So if he blanks out, it's going to potentially reroll a ton of different dice, which could be really good or really bad depending on who activates Jar Jar. So if you roll that another character and you're kind of building up a combo, your opponent can say roll Jar Jar in, and then you have to re-roll everything that maybe you were focusing to or things like that. Or if you're running a heavy melee damage deck, like a villain melee damage deck against Jar Jar, he doesn't have any melee damage sides on his die, so when they activate him, all the melee damage that's in your pool gets re-rolled. It's kind of like almost like a for range damage and melee damage. It's essentially a sound the alarm that any player can really activate. So basically, sound the alarm lets you reroll like any dice showing melee or range damage. Since Jar Jar doesn't have melee or range, he gets to once he activates, all those dice get re-rolled. I think it's just going to be a lot of fun playing with this card. So, and I think it feels very thematic. So Jar Jar, in the films, basically does good stuff completely by accident, and then also does bad stuff completely by accident. So he, um, in the first movie, blows up one of the Trade Federation tanks because he is like bobbling with one of the Gungan grenades or whatever those are, and it goes into the tank and explodes it. And then in the second movie, he gives Palpatine emergency powers to essentially start the Clone War. So it's thematic that if you activate it, you can mess with your opponent pretty badly. If your opponent activates it, they can kind of mess with you depending on who's rolled in what and how many dice are in the pool. One thing that's interesting is to minimize his effect. Um, I may give my opponent a free activation with Jar Jar, but let's say I claim the battlefield and I get to go first. My first action as the opponent might be for them to activate Jar Jar. So Jar Jar will roll in, and since there's nothing else in the pool yet, his ability won't be able to trigger, and and that stuff won't get re-rolled. So, but the thing is, if he resolves something and finds a way to ready himself and roll it again, he can then mess with those dice a second time if your opponent is essentially giving you a free activation. So when you roll Jar Jar in with nothing else in the pool, nothing will really happen. But that is Jar Jar Binks. I think one of the most interesting cards um, in the game. It's just going to be fun to kind of create a silly deck that runs Jar Jar and just has you re-rolling a massive amount of dice. I do like that any player may use an action to force the person that's controlling Jar Jar to activate him. So that's Jar Jar Binks. We're going to move into our next card. And another very interesting card is Saw Gerrera, Extremist Leader. 11 health, 12/16 for a single, and then for elite. 2 indirect damage, 3 indirect damage, disrupt, resource, special, and blank. And special is discard a random card from a player's hand. Then deal indirect damage to an opponent equal to its cost. So kind of has like a Kylo ability, Kylo starter Kylo, not two players Kylo, where his special is discard a random card from an opponent's hand, and then its resource cost is damage to that character, to a character. I like that it could be any player. So I could discard a random card from my own hand, or I probably maybe have an opponent pick it for me, like fan my cards out and then say that, discard it. So let's say it's a 3 resource cost card. It does 3 indirect damage. Especially if you're playing in a deck that lets you get cards back, or let's say you're down to 1 card in your hand. Let's say you're holding on to a really expensive card, like a 5-cost vehicle or something like that, and you only have 1 card in your hand. You would discard that card to do 5 indirect damage. So I like his health as well. So 11 health. Again, 12/16. Potentially 3 damage sides, all indirect, which I think is pretty thematic as well, because in Rogue One, they kind of mention how, his, extremism is kind of damaging both sides of the conflict. Like, he's directly attacking the Empire, but also kind of damaging the rebellion by bringing, like unwanted attention to the rebellion and stuff like that. So, really thematic. Interesting ability. I think it's pretty cool, especially if there's cards you just want to get rid of that. Let's say you have a bunch of cards that are like spot a certain character. You may end up getting rid of those to use his ability. Even though it's going to be discarded randomly, you might not discard the exact card that you want, which I think is also kind of an interesting part of the ability where, the extremism aspect of his character is just, like causing damage everywhere, even if it's not maybe damage where they want it to go. But again, potentially 3 damage sides. I think like good health, fairly low cost. So like you can have another 14-point elite paired with him as well. So let's say you paired him with maybe somebody like Hera, and you had a bunch of vehicles in your deck. You're running Starship Graveyard, so you can potentially discard an expensive vehicle, deal indirect damage with him, use Starship Graveyard to get it back, and then also then maybe play it with Hera as well. So that is Saw Gerrera. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Runaway Boomers. 3 resources. Yellow Hero Support Artillery. 2 indirect damage, 2 indirect damage, 3 indirect damage, 3 blanks. And it has a power action as well. So it's power action, spend 1 resource to roll a Runaway Boomers die into your pool. Set this die aside after it's resolved or removed. And you can only use the power action once per round. I'm not a fan of the 3 blanks and having it cost 3 resources, but I do think it's kind of balanced out because I think 2 resources especially with the power action, would probably be too expensive. So the 3 resources is all right, especially if you're playing in a deck where you can roll this out and then potentially focus, like in a deck with Maz maybe, where you roll the Runaway Boomers in. Let's say you blank out on the Boomas. You then activate Maz, and you're able to potentially focus into the indirect damage and resolve it as well. I also like that it has this power action, so you spend 1 resource to roll an extra one of these dice into your pool. So you pay 3 resources essentially to get it out, but then once per round, you're able to spend 1 resource to roll an extra one of them into your pool. So let's say you activate the one. Let's say you pay the three resources, you roll the Runaway Boomers into your pool, and let's say it blanks out. Later, you spend the resource to roll another one into your pool. Let's say it hits 2 damage. And then you say you activate Maz, you focus, and then resolve some of the Boomas for indirect damage. So I think this could be pretty interesting, especially if you have a way to focus off of the blanks, because you have a 50% chance to hit these blanks. So having a way to make them focus into their three indirect damage side would be pretty nice. So those are the Runaway Boomas. We're going to move into our next card. Next up, we have Hondo Onaka, respected businessman, 10 health, 12 or 15 points, depending on how you want to run him. 1 focus, 2 disrupt, 1 discard, 2 specials, and the blank. Also, neutral character, so in the Rivals draft set that was announced, they have some neutral characters. It looks like this is the first neutral character revealed outside of that draft set. So you can play him in a hero deck, you can play him in a villain deck, and then, yeah, because he fits both sides. So he's a pirate, so he's kind of, out for himself, but he does some bad stuff, he does some good stuff, and he can fit into both villain and hero decks. And then he has a special. So, special, deal 3 damage to an opponent's character, unless that opponent gives you 1 resource. So, you can get a resource, prevent 3 damage, but it's going to be interesting once your opponent is out of resources, this will just hit for 3 damage. I like the idea of potentially pairing this with Ezra. Maybe an Elite Hondo, a single die Ezra, and let me see, 15 plus 7. You got 22 points. You can then run another 8-point character possibly. So let's say you roll Ezra. Let's say you roll in Ezra and you have Hondo, and they're both on specials, or if you focused, you double specials. You trigger Ezra special first. You take away 1 of their resources, if they have any. And then let's say now they're out of resources. You can then trigger Hondo's ability to hit that character for 3 damage. So you take a resource with Ezra, deal 3 with Hondo, or if they have 2 resources, you take a resource with Ezra and take a resource with Hondo, and then that prevents them from doing the 3 damage. I also like that this could be hit with Cunning. So let's say you don't even have this die in the pool, but you roll out, you Cunning, you do 3 damage if they have 0 resources. So this, again, neutral character, hoping to see more of these in the set, because we have some of the Rivals draft set, and this is the first one shown from Legacies. So he should be pretty interesting, even at, I think, like a single die at 12 points. He's got, let's see, he's got the 2 special sides, so it's essentially, if they don't have any resources, those are 2 damage sides, basically. And he can focus, he can also get rid of resources with Disrupt, which is nice as well, and get rid of a card with Discard. So I think his sides are good, and his sides play well with his special. So if you disrupt both their resources with 1 of his dice, let's say you have a special on the other one, you can then disrupt 2 and then trigger a special. They won't have any resources to pay for the preventing damage, and then they'll take 3 damage. So this is Hondo Onaka. We're going to move into our next card. All right, into some of our events here. We have In Pursuit, Yellow Villain event, 0 resources. Play only if an opponent activated 1 or more characters during their last turn this round. Activate any number of your yellow characters in the order of your choice. So let's say your opponent goes first. They roll in a character. You're then able to pay 0 and roll in any number of your yellow characters. I think this could pair really well with something like Swiftness. So they roll in first. You play Swiftness, giving this ambush, roll in all of your yellow characters, and resolve all of those dice potentially. So that could be pretty interesting. I also like that, again, cost 0. You can give it ambush. And basically, you just got to be a little bit patient with your opponent. So, like, you want them to kind of activate first. So then you're able to play In Pursuit and roll in all your yellow characters. I think it could be a really interesting card, especially with like 3 or 4 character decks that are all potentially monocolor. So you can roll in all of your yellow characters with this card. So that is in pursuit. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have No Good to Me Dead, 0 resources, yellow villain event. Heal up to 2 damage from an opponent's character. Gain resources equal to the amount of damage you just healed. So you're going to potentially gain 2 resources for healing 2 damage. This could be really good, especially if you need those resources, or if you have a way to essentially, let's say, heal that character and then immediately deal enough damage to maybe defeat the character as well. So let's say you ambush this, you heal 2 damage, you get 2 resources that you need for something else, and then if you give this ambush, you can then, let's say, resolve some of your dice against that character. It could be pretty interesting, especially in decks that also don't really run a lot of resource generation. So let's say you're running like a really heavy hitting deck, but it's kind of low on just resources or being able to make resources. This would be an interesting way to get more resources. Granted, you are going to be giving them more of a fighting chance to survive because you are healing 2 damage from them, but you're also getting 2 resources, which you might actually need in the round to play a particular event that possibly defeats that character, or maybe you need resources to pay for a pay side or something like that. Be pretty interesting. So let's say you have like red, yellow, you have a rocket launcher, no resources. You can heal 2 damage from a character, get those 2 resources, and then use the rocket launch. Use one of the sides on a rocket launcher to deal damage to that character, and maybe potentially defeat them if they were low enough. Let's say you heal 2, and they take 3, and then they're dead. So that is No Good to Me Dead. We're gonna move into our next card. Next up, we have Explosive Tactics. 2 resources, yellow hero event. Discard the top card of a deck, then deal indirect damage to an opponent equal to its cost. So if you know what card, let's say, is on the top of a deck, even if it's your deck, let's say you're playing Starship Graveyard, and let's say you have a quad jumper in your graveyard because you're playing a Hera vehicle deck, and you shredded the quad jumper to get something else out. You can put that quad jumper on the top of your deck, play Explosive Tactics, discard the top card, goes back into your discard pile, and then you do 3 indirect damage. Or if you have a way to kind of rearrange cards on a deck or put something on the top of a deck, you're then able to know what's on top of it, and you can do a massive amount of damage with this. Or let's just say, for example, you're running a vehicle deck again, and you have like a Millennium Falcon that you use Starship Graveyard, Millennium Falcon goes back to the top of your deck, you then pay 2 resources, discard it, and do 5 indirect damage. So I think this could go really well in, like, especially while Sabine's right on the card. You could even do this with something where you play Explosive Tactics, discard a card, discard the card, and it might be a weapon that you could put on her later. You deal whatever the cost of the weapon is. So let's say a holdout blaster, possibly. Pay 2, discard it, deal 2 damage, and then later, if you have 2 more resources, you're able to play that weapon on her and activate her and use her ability to get stuff out of your discard pile. So use this to put it in your discard pile, deal damage with it, and then use her ability to get stuff back. That could be pretty interesting. So that is Explosive Tactics. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Cantina Brawl. 1 resource, neutral event, neutral yellow. Deal 1 damage to an opponent's character. Then that opponent may discard a card from their hand to repeat this effect. So from what the article says, this thing can just cycle until both players like basically throw out all their cards in their hand. So I pay a resource, I deal a damage. It goes to my opponent, they can discard a card to deal a damage, and then it comes back to me. I have the opportunity to discard a card again, deal 1 damage, and then that just keeps going and going and going until somebody doesn't want to discard a card. I think this is also really interesting because it's damage that isn't on a die. So if your opponent is down to 1 health, you can just say, pay 1 resource, Cantina Brawl, deal 1 damage, and win. Your opponent is probably not going, if they're down to their last character and only a few health left, I think they're very unlikely to pay or discard a card to hit you back unless you're also really low on health. I also like the potential of this card with ambush. So swiftness into it, or infamous it or something like that. Pay the resource, hit them. They hit you. You go back and forth a couple times, and then you get to take another action. Other action could be to maybe play another one of the play another Cantina Brawl if you have one, and then or some other event, roll a character in, do a bunch of stuff. This is just gonna be a really interesting card, I think, especially if both players just continue cycling their hand. Let's say I discard all my cards. Let's say I'm playing blue, yellow, maybe. I then will, let's say, pay one Cantina Brawl, and I'll Cantina Brawl, and then like I say, I get down to my last card of my hand. Let's say it's a Balanced Ambition. I can then stop the Cantina Brawl, balance, get a full hand again, and have a bunch of events to use later in the round. So that is Cantina Brawl. We're going to move into our next card. And the final card for today is the Pirate Speeder Tank. I'm imagining this is going to be villain. It may be neutral just because it's a pirate, so it could be, good pirates or bad pirates. 5 resources. It's a support vehicle, 3 range damage, 4 indirect damage, 5 indirect damage for a resource, 2 shields, a special, and a blank. And some of this stuff is kind of covered, but it looks like the special is deal 2 damage to a character, give a character 2 shields, and take an additional action. I think you get to do all 3 of those. It doesn't say choose. It's not like on Yoda's special or on the Force Training special where you have 3 options and you choose 2 of them. So it looks like you hit a character for 2, you then get 2 shields, and then you get to do something else. I'm hoping this is neutral because I would think this would be kind of interesting in a Qui-Gon deck. So Qui-Gon with a yellow character of some kind. So you deal 2 damage to a character. You then put 2 shields on Qui-Gon. You trigger his ability with shield damage, and then you get to take another action. So let's say Qui-Gon's rolled out. You can use the special on this, deal 2, get 2 shields, take an additional action, and then just resolve more shields on Qui-Gon. That could be pretty interesting. So, Speeder Tank. So 5 damage or 5 resources. I think it's well costed. So you have 4 damage sides essentially because the special does 2 damage. Then you have the 5 indirect for a resource, the 4 indirect, and the 3 range. This could be a pretty interesting card. Again, I'm hoping this is neutral because obviously we looked earlier, and Hondo is a neutral card, a neutral character. So hopefully, kind of like the stuff that's maybe like pirate related can be used in both hero and villain decks. But that's going to do it for this video. There'll be a link in the description to where you can check out the article from Fantasy Flight about these cards. Again, I want to thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Take care.